Good afternoon, Mike. How are you today?
I'm A-okay. How are you, Alan?
I'm doing great.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to my neighborhood. I'm glad you're at the aquarium today. It's a beautiful day to be in the water.
Mike, are you feeling nice and comfortable in there?
I am now, but, a little technical difficulties getting down here, but I'm ready to have a nice show, and a bunch of fish are also anxious to get something to eat, so with no further ado, here is something to eat. You guys might notice that we have some big food, like this is a big squid. And some of these guys will just nibble at it. Well, some of the larger fish, like the sheephead that Alan was mentioning, and also some of the sharks, they might just take the whole thing whole.
Beautiful. Besides squid, what else are you feeding?
Well, let's take a look in the old picnic basket. Well, there's another squid. I've got a variety of different types of food because, as you might suspect, all the different species of fish in here have their own preferences, but this is my personal favorite. See that little brown cube there? That is the aquarium's answer to the one-a-day vitamin. That is a jello-like matrix that is infused with fish meal, but it also has a lot of vitamins and minerals. And because the animals in this exhibit need to have a balanced diet, we decided to supplement that diet somewhat with those little cubes of food, and it's been a success because the animals really like them.
He wanted more than just a cube.
Yeah, he was disappointed. He wanted a big old squid. Here you go.
Beautiful.
Nothing but the best.
So, are you wearing a wetsuit or a dry suit, Mike?
I've got a wetsuit on today. Whoa! Wait, your turn. I have a wetsuit which allows a little bit of water to percolate through it, and then that layer of water on the surface of your skin is quickly warmed, and it actually acts as your insulating layer that keeps you warm and comfortable for a good hour, for me anyway, under the water in Monterey Bay. And here, the water I hear from Alan is 57.5 degrees, which by our standards is relatively warm.
Right. How cold does the Monterey Bay get normally?
Well, depending on the time of year, during the summer months, the early summer, like, wow, I'm going to stop at mid-sentence and say, you want to get a picture of this, guys.
Yeah, you very seldom see him out. He always hides, by the way.
This is called a wood eel, and obviously that's an animal that is not built for speed. They're usually a lion weight predator, and they very rarely ever come out. So if you got that one on film, that's a good thing.
He's beautiful.
They're usually crack and crevice dwellers, and I kind of felt him coming up behind me. That's a rare treat. Whoa, he's coming back for more, Alan.
Now's the time to take a good picture of this guy. Very rarely does he come out.
They don't have a swim bladder, so that they're not really mutually buoyant. They're made to sink to live on the bottom. So they usually are content to wait for food to come to them. And this is his third squid, so it's like quite a meal. Maybe he'll go for 4.
Beautiful.
This is great. Dances with wood eels.
Beautiful looking animal, by the way.
Yes, there's a face only a mother can love.
That's very true.
I bet he's saying the same thing about me, though.
Wow. That's something else.
You know, this is just so cool. This is why I love to volunteer at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, because you just can't script this. This is kind of stuff that just happens.
It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's a beautiful sight.
Anyway, the animals that you see in this exhibit, these are mostly the typical fishes that you would find in a kelp forest right here off Cannery Road. There are a few more exotic animals that would be found more frequently in Southern California. However, you know, a lot of the times that I come in this exhibit, I fantasize that I'm really in the ocean, and if I'm facing away it's really hard to distinguish the rockwork and the kelp forest that's in this exhibit from the real thing. It's a very good facsimile.
Some of these rockfish look kind of on the old side, is that right?
Yeah, in fact, well, let's point out what a rockfish is, first of all. This is a rockfish. Rockfish belongs to a genus called Sebastes, which means magnificent. And they are really, truly a magnificent fish. They're a very robust fish. As far as, for those of you that eat fish, they're great to eat. Unfortunately for them, because they are such good tasting fish, they're pretty severely depleted in numbers, so they're being managed a lot more carefully now than they used to be. But rockfish can be super old. In fact, they don't even reproduce until they're in their teens. And unfortunately, if we fish them too young, we cull the reproductive stock, and then that affects the next generation too. So it's a kind of a negative feedback loop as far as fisheries biology is concerned.
So some of these rockfish can be 50, 60 years old.
Yes, they can. You know, they're almost as old as you and me, Alan.
That's right. Well, that's saying a lot.
Yeah, and I'm older than dirt.
You can imagine what that's all about. Beautiful. Now, one thing about a rockfish, some of the rockfish that I'm looking at, they seem to be hanging in the air, but obviously it's water. How are they able to hang in the water that way without moving?
Well, what Alan is talking about is sometimes you'll find some of the kelp rockfish that will mimic some of the blades of this kelp, and they just kind of bounce along because that's their niche. That's the way that they behave within a kelp forest. And they have a air bladder inside of them that allows them to be neutrally buoyant. They can hang in a water column, and it makes it look like it's really effortless because they are the same weight as the water that they displace. So they don't rise and they don't fall in the water column. They just hang there and they're neutrally buoyant, which is what a lot of fishes do. That woodfield was negatively buoyant. It's a sinker. But the rest of these guys, you know, it doesn't really take a lot of effort for them to hang in one spot.
Okay. It sounds like a submarine in a way.
Yeah, it's the same principle, actually. Ballast.
Beautiful. Now, exactly what keeps the kelp moving and alive?
Well, kelp has something very similar to a plant. It photosynthesizes. It's an autotrophic organism. However, that's about as far as it goes because plants are a lot more complex than kelp, and they're not even in the same kingdom. And consequently, the macroalgae, like you can see here, which we call giant kelp, is a very productive part of the ocean. It's found in shallow water where it's got a substrate that it can cling onto, but it also needs light, like any plant would. It also needs carbon dioxide, which it gets from the water. It's got plenty of water, it lives in water, and it produces all kinds of food that other animals exploit because it's a primary producer. And it also gives habitat, so it gives a place for all these other organisms to live. So kelp, it's like a win-win-win-win situation. It's the best thing around in a nearshore environment. A kelp forest is a very productive area, and it's a very species diversity, or rich in diversity area as well.
So Mike, are you telling me that this environment that you're in is just like Monterey Bay?
Well, in some ways. There are some ways that it's really artificial. In fact, you would never find this density of fishes in Monterey Bay because right now the population of this exhibit is a little too optimistic. And to find this many adult fish in one area would be next to impossible. Usually there's an age structure where you have a lot of juveniles and then fewer adults. Here it's almost all adults. And consequently, that isn't what you typically find in the real ocean.
And I don't see any litter in your neighborhood either in here.
Well, actually, I'm very proud to say that most places along Cannery Row are very clean. That you won't find a lot of soda pop cans on the bottom. And primarily it's because people have an environmental ethic around here. They don't toss their trash out where it's going to end up in the sea. And if there is something that shouldn't be in the ocean, typically divers will pick it up and get rid of it. But there is a real problem. The worst thing you can ever mix with seawater is plastic. Because plastic lives forever, and like this little artifact that I brought down here, oftentimes plastic even mimics the appearance of jellies. And sometimes animals that eat jellies, like sea turtles, will gobble up one of these plastic bags mistaking it for a jellyfish, and it clogs their viscera, and they die a very slow and painful death because of that. So if you want to do one thing to really help the environment, just say no to plastic.
Beautiful. What's another thing that people can do to protect the oceans of the world?
Well, you're already doing it. Coming here and educating yourself by finding out a little bit more about the marine environment of the aquarium is a good start. But, you know, there are different ways that you can say no to plastic. You can not accept that plastic bag at the supermarket when they offer you one and say, no, I brought my own tote, or can I have paper instead? Or you can refuse to use plastic that you would find from, say, a single-use water bottle and get a metal canteen instead, which is so much more economical anyway. But, you know, just caring, walking along the beach and picking up litter, that helps.
So those are two major things people can do. And then, what's this business called, the Seafood Watch card?
I don't leave home without it. So, you've probably seen this many times around the aquarium today, but the Seafood Watch program at the aquarium is just a way for us to advocate for people to make wise choices with the seafoods that they decide to buy either at a seafood restaurant or at a fish market. And the three different types of categories are for those that we recommend in green, those that we recommend you try to avoid in red, and in between that yellow area are proceed with caution. In other words, there are better alternatives if you can find them.
Okay. Mike, I've been watching these sardines swimming around you all over the place in here. They never seem to run into each other. What gives with them?
Well, if you take a close look at a fish, you can see that along the side of the fish, there's a lateral line system. The line is pretty vibrant on this rockfish.
Okay.
That picks up low frequency vibrations, and it's kind of the way that they hear. And when all those schooling fish pulse in one direction or another, it's because one of them makes a movement, the other ones pick up on it, but they all can follow the leader, and the leader changes constantly. So it's schooling behavior that's very well coordinated with a very advanced sensory system.